We'll start here. I'm going to ask you to say your name and then your question.
Hello, my name's Kathy. Can you hear me? I just want to know, where do we go from here? I've never been an MC, and I've wanted to join one. If you don't know what MC to join, and maybe what your particular role in MC is, so where do we go from here? Thank you.
Out by the whiteboard, you'll see these cards. Grab one of those, fill it out. You'll get your information into us, and then within the next week or two, one of us or Jen Barada, our intern who's helping us a ton with this, will be in contact with you and kind of give you next steps. We'll find out where you live, what part of the city, and see if we can get you connected to a community that would make sense for you to join. Great question.
All right, who else? Coming back. Let's go. Let's do this. I'm going Phil Donahue style, old school. Jeremy from Wichita.
I'd like to know, how do you replicate out of this as your group grows? What's phase 2 of replication look like for that?
There's an appendix in the field guide. I think it's called How to Multiply the Missional Community. And so again, so the two essential components are a core team and a shared mission. And usually a missional community kind of has to get pregnant with two missions. And usually what happens, either a core team emerges or there's just a kind of an apostolic, evangelistic type of leader who comes into a missional community, and that current core team can discern, hey, this guy has a passion for such and such. And so you kind of give that guy permission to start bringing people from your missional community around him or other people, and kind of letting that other shared mission get pregnant within your missional community. And then whenever the timing's right, you send them out. And in our experience, the timing is usually right a little bit earlier than we actually send them out, just because we can take some risk. And so in my missional community this past year, we had kind of two pregnant shared missions within our Hanscom Park shared mission. And so now I believe that's going to lead to those two communities going out.
I'm going to add to that. I know a lot of you will launch missional communities this fall, and you will not have that luxury of kind of having two subgroups within your missional community, and that's okay. What you want to just keep in your mind is, if we're working towards multiplication, be looking for that next shared mission, be looking for those leaders who you can raise up and multiply, and be asking God who those people are and how you can equip them. And so as far as multiplication and replication goes, you're always thinking about that, although at the various stages that may be, and especially at the very beginning, that may be less clear how that's going to happen. But as you go along, you're continually keeping that vision in front of you and that desire to multiply.
All right, who else has a question? Go here, and then I'm going over to you, Holly.
Organizationally, from a leadership pastoral standpoint, how are you going to monitor your core team growth, accountability, leader burnout, stuff like that?
Yeah, great question. One of the things we're doing as a church, as we get more aggressive with mission and launching out core teams and giving a lot more freedom to our community there, in addition to that, we've set in place a coaching structure to give a lot more care and oversight that's also, that kind of matches the aggressiveness of the mission. We're upping our care to the highest level that I think we've ever intentionally done. As you guys appoint kind of a leader or a point person within your missional community, we'll put a coach with them. They'll meet with that coach with other MC leaders weekly in a discipleship relationship, so that we're really keeping just a hands-on, knowing what's going on in each of our missional communities while trying to really equip and develop leaders. In addition, this won't work out perfectly, but our hope as leaders is to get into your missional communities once a month or every other month. And that way we can meet with you as a team, hear from you, hear how the mission's going, where do you need help, where can we equip. And so our hope is to just keep tabs on how the mission is going, what's going on, and how your leadership needs to continue to equip and serve you so the mission can go forward.
All right, Holly.
As you try to form a core team, say you have a specific mission for a specific neighborhood, but you're the only people who live in that neighborhood, how do you cast vision and get buy-in from other people?
I tend to not shut up about Hanscom Park. We love our neighborhood a lot, and I know that you and Paul love, I think it's Millard Oaks. Even the fact that I know that there is a Millard Oaks is due to you guys. You guys talk about it a lot, and so first of all, I want to encourage you in that you do have a passion for that neighborhood. I think that's from God, and I just want to celebrate that in and of itself. I'd encourage you to also continue to pray. So Whitney and I prayed a lot, and we went from having one couple in our neighborhood who lived almost on the other side of our neighborhood to now God has brought 2 other couples, like just within a few blocks, that just bought houses into our neighborhood. So 1, pray for that. 2, there may be people who don't live in your neighborhood, but they live close by, who are willing to be on shared mission with you in your neighborhood and drive in and do things like that. So we had that this past year where people lived in Park Avenue, which is a little bit north of us, but they kind of shared the mission in Hanscom Park, and that kind of bled over. There's a whole pocket from Benson that were with us for a little while. They were kind of sharing it a little bit. Now they're going back to Benson, stuff like that. So there may be opportunities for that to happen. I guess if that doesn't happen, then just pray and be open to whatever the Spirit is leading you and Paul to be a part of. Is that Millard Oaks? Is that in another MC and then you multiply out 3 or 4 months from now? I'm not for sure. I hope it's Millard Oaks because I love you guys' passion for Millard Oaks, and I love how you guys lead. You guys lead really well. So,
All right, who else has a question? Yeah.
What do the next 3 months this fall basically look like with, obviously, Gospel Centered Life came out of here. So what are you guys doing in that fellowship time? So when they gather, how are you regulating that? What are you doing as part of that? Or what are you equipping them with in that time?
Great question. Not necessarily something that we have discussed and landed on anything in a 100% way. We're looking to what we're going to do from an Air War standpoint as far as what might drive the content for particular missional communities. But overall, what we want to see missional communities, core teams thinking through is what's the unique ways we need to disciple the people God is bringing us to and calling us to make disciples of. So I can think of a couple of different scenarios this past spring and summer where missional communities, they had a group of people that was sojourning, asking questions about the gospel, and so they asked if they could do gospel-centered life. We gave them the freedom to be able to do gospel-centered life during their fellowship time. And so as we think about content, there's definitely going to be a sense of matching up content that you do in missional community with what we're preaching on Sunday mornings, which we're still considering after the missional community series. But we also want core teams, missional community leaders, you guys on the ground as far as thinking through what do we need to engage in, where do we need to grow, how do we need to grow disciples with the people we're trying to make disciples of. And so beginning to think on a content level, with your coach, with the individuals you're doing discipleship with, what's the best way to make disciples of this group of people this next season. And so we want to just open that up a little bit.
I'm Kimberly. I'm in Bellevue. So we, in the Bellevue Old Town MC, we are thinking about a new mission. I'm totally excited about it. I also have 3 children, 5 and under, and starting to homeschool, and I'm absolutely overwhelmed. Like, that calendar blew my mind. Like, how much of my home life am I going to be trying to protect to raise my children and train them so that they're not like complete hoodlums by the time they're 16, and still participate and be on mission because I want to be on mission.
I guess the first answer that's going to have to be short just because I don't know you that well is anything going on in your heart there, your core team or your husband, or like you guys can process that together. I guess my second response, and you guys can jump in too, this is why I personally am an advocate of shared mission being neighborhood based, because my kids, they're just wrapped up in this. Like my son shares the gospel more than I do. Like before we pray at night, every once in a while we'll pray, Father in heaven, please help us to teach our neighbors about Jesus. And then like Cademan, my 6-year-old, he goes and does it, and he's like, Dad, why aren't you doing this? So like, I love that neighborhood-based shared mission, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's not neighborhood-based, but some way where your children are a part of this with you. And in the long run, if you're loving your children well, still teaching them well, discipling them well, that's actually just like for a missional community, that's going to make better disciples. That's also going to make better disciples of your children if they see you on mission. Now, don't hear me saying that's going to be easy at all. It's messy and dirty. But that's one of the reasons I'm an advocate of neighborhood-based shared mission.
I'm going to add on this just because I know Kimberly a little bit. It's a good case study of missional community fitting natural rhythms of your life. Like, so for Kimberly, she's already doing this. She went to a picnic yesterday that the Bellevue Offit homeschool group did. That's what her missional community should do together. That's something she's going to do anyway. It just adds purpose and intention to what they're doing at that picnic. Last Saturday, we all did a parade down in Bellevue and then went over to Tony and Nicole Weir's house, and there was a couple who's involved in BOG who went to that parade with us, and then they came over to the Weir's home and hung out. And so that couple who's outside of our community right now is getting invited in, and we're participating in natural rhythms with them. The only thing we're not doing at this point is the fellowship space that we've been resting from this summer. And so for Kimberly, and for most of us, what we want to see happen with missional community as we do shared mission is this is something that just is part of our natural rhythms. Mission is not an add-on. It is something that we're already doing. It's something that already meets with what we're doing in the everyday moments of life.
My name's Adam, and I'm part of a church out west here in Omaha. We're in a room of 450 people actively interested in missional communities. The reality is probably not all of us right now can be leaders of a missional community and a core team. How do you distinguish between new leaders and simply people who are passionate about Jesus?
Hey, what was your name again, bud? Adam. Hey, thanks for joining us today. Part of that's going to come with conversations, but honestly, I think this is why we built out some of the core team stuff. If I overstep my bounds, pull me back, okay? I think if there's someone who loves Jesus, they're going to make an awesome addition to any core team. And so I would invite them gently, but I would invite them, hey, just come be a part of this. And this may not be the perfect, most specific place for you, but like you'd make an awesome addition to our core team. And so even if that person just is on that core team for 6 months and then he realizes, well, actually this is the wrong neighborhood, or I don't really like this people group, then like change that up, But if someone is just loving Jesus, basically what I want to do, I want to lower that entry bar into being on a core team to like, if you love Jesus, then get after it. You can make disciples if you love Jesus. They may not know a ton of scripture just because you don't know a ton of scripture, but they're going to love Jesus. You know what I mean? Because you love Jesus. So.
Bob, I think the next question's back there. If you want to start walking that way, I'll just add on. You bet, man. You don't have eyes in the back of your head. I would just add on to that. I think it's a great question. Some of you, I'm guessing, are feeling like, is it core team or nothing? I think, hear from us. We really want you as Jesus followers to be on core teams because we feel like that's just part of being disciples and growing. But listen, some of you guys are in process, right? And it doesn't mean that you're hard-hearted, unrepentant. It just means you're getting there. And I want you to hear there's a place for you. You can still be in missional community. You might not be ready to be a part of the foundational core. And so don't hear us say core team or nothing. I'm guessing there's even some people in the room that you're like, I'm not sure I'm actually converted. That's okay. We got lots of people in our church, especially on Sunday mornings, that are very much a part of the life of our church, and they're not Christians yet. They're still journeying. Don't hear us say that we're changing the structures so that you can't be a part of the weekly rhythms of our church. Of course not. We're just saying, realize that the kind of the foundational core, those are the people that really drive the mission forward. They need to be committed to each other and to the church and to the mission. But some of you are just going to need to journey in missional community for a while still, and that's great.
That was a much better answer than mine. Great job.
Took me a while to get there, so you gave me time.
Awesome.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Peterson, and my husband Dean and I are part of Coram Deo, and we love it. I have a two-part question introduced by a cliche. Never talk about politics and religion in public. I don't adhere to that. Would it be appropriate and helpful for, as part of an MC's shared vision, to enter into the election coming up in America, thinking about the fact that Christianity is not a special interest group, but as Chuck Colson and others have said, if we as Christians are not involved in the political process, am I registered to vote? Do I know who's running for the school board or the judge in district, whatever? So would it be appropriate and helpful, I think yes, for an MC as part of their shared vision to, get out the vote? I mean, it's important, it's out there. If we don't vote, how are we going to influence? And I know we're not going to say anything from the pulpit about a particular candidate, et cetera.
I actually like this question, and I like that you just made 350 people out of the 400 really uncomfortable. That's great. So here's one of the things we've been talking about as leadership. We've been doing some training with our staff preparing for this, and we've been talking about yes reflex. And what that is that we're saying, hey, we want to be permission giving and allow the Spirit of God to work in people that love Jesus and have the Spirit. And so my initial answer is yes, go do that. And then I would love to have more conversations with you about what that's going to look like and how you're going to do that in a way that's God honoring and not just evangelizing for a certain political position, because we try not to do that as a church. We try and hold up Jesus, and we say, hey, there's people on both sides of the party lines that love Jesus and have good views on stuff. And so, the only thing that I'd be interested in is just the timeline. So actually being able to get that mission up and going and doing it, but you might be ready to roll on that. So let's have a conversation.
All right. Yeah.
My name is Kelly, and one thing I'm kind of curious about for those who are part of Coram Deo and seeking membership, one of the requirements of that membership is that you are part of a missional community, and I know that some MCs are going to be there when we start up again and some aren't. Logistically, how is that going to affect the membership process for those who are seeking membership?
You might help me out. You're in an existing MC and you have been for several months, right? Are you asking if that just transfers over to the future, or if you have to be an existing MC for 6 months and that all starts over right now? Yeah. Yeah. Yes, great question. I appreciate you asking that. As far as Does the time on the clock start from this fall when you re-enter a new missional community, or your new missional community launches? No, we're not going to restart the time on that clock. The time that you've been in a missional community, we want to honor. And so as far as the membership process goes, as you've been doing missional communities, you've been entering into those rhythms, that time's honored. We want to uphold that.
Who else? Dale.
Hey guys, do we have like any type of safety net set up for people that are part of Coram Deo now that may slip through the cracks of discipleship as we focus so much on the outward mission? Like maybe specifically kind of like in the teaching of our fellowship times and stuff like that.
I think I was following you until that last part, especially in our teaching times.
Well, there wasn't like a lot of a focus on our teaching times, and I guess that probably comes down to like the leaders through you guys. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just kind of thinking about the people that are part of Coram Deo, like not to lose focus on our discipleships and our relationships there. Are there any type of, a focus or safety net put out there for those guys?
Okay. Tell me if I actually answer your question. One, our elders, they push, none of us are actually elders, but our elders, they push us hard on, hey, we are called to be shepherds of God's people, and we don't want people falling through the cracks. So I don't care how cool and how awesome 50 missional communities are, we also need to just make sure people are being discipled. And we don't want people just like being lost in the shuffle. And so, one, we have an intern who's like focused on that, and we got lists of members and all that jazz to where we can track that, follow up with people, check in with people, stuff like that. The second part of your question, I wasn't quite for sure, but I think you're maybe talking about just how do people who are already Christians or have been in MC in the past, how do they continue to teach one another? Okay. Yeah, the coaching structure, and then there's ongoing leadership development that would happen. And then for those people who are in Porterbrook, I'll give a quick plug for Porterbrook. Porterbrook is a great way to get trained and grow as a leader for missional communities or other missional leadership in the church. Okay.
Yeah, to your question, Dale, I want to make sure we understand just our gospel identities. We're not saying missionary is the only identity. We're saying disciple, family, missionary. Those need to be the three identities of our missional community. And if mission is the only identity we're living out in, or we're only engaging in that identity, our missional communities are going to be unhealthy. And so from the coaching standpoint, we want to make sure our missional communities are made up of healthy disciples, they're a healthy family, and they're, in a healthy way, they're engaging in mission. It's not just that we want to get make sure there's an outward focus on mission. That would not create a healthy community. And so while you've heard us talk a lot about the shared mission being the organizing component, or the organizing, the fundamental shift that we're making is making shared mission the organizing principle of a missional community. Like that's one aspect. We will be training our communities in how to do to caring for one another's souls well. We'll be talking through how to make disciples well, and we'll be talking through how to do mission well. And so we're thinking holistically as far as that goes.
I'd just say really quick, there's an appendix in the field guide just called How to Gospel One Another that's intended to give really simple, clear, practical tools for how to be discipling one another in a core team or a missional community. So that's also there for you.
All right, 3 more questions. All right, Wes.
As Coram Deo has grown and the demographic is still largely young, but there's a lot of people now coming who have children that are a little older. And as you pointed out earlier, the intent is to enter into mission and have your children be a part of the mission that you're into. I'm wondering what the structure looks like when you're in fellowship and you have children now that are teenagers or preteens or whatever that are sitting in the conversation with you, sharing in things, and how we or what your thoughts are on how that works and how people can be real and getting into the nitty-gritty of life in front of a multi-generational audience, I guess.
Yeah, I would just want to draw it back to, we really want to free you to do what you need to do for the care of the community and for the discipleship of the community. And what I mean by that is, I don't assume that every conversation that needs to be happen in nature of spiritual formation should be had around the dinner table, cross-generational, mixed sexes, all of those things. What we want to say is, hey, as a core team, as a missional community, come up with the rhythms and the things that you need as a community to be formed and to take ownership for each other. So probably what that's going to mean, Wes, is like some of those conversations need to happen as the men decide, hey, we're going to have kind of a, the three men in the community are going to get together for coffee once a week or once a month or whatever, and we're going to have some of those deeper conversations about our life stage and where we're at. And so I just want to really just pound the drum for creativity and breaking outside of our traditional Tuesday or Wednesday night as missional community. No, that was a structure, and one of the things that we're trying to change is how we tend to default towards thinking that deal in and of itself is missional community. It's not. And, do away with that deal if you need. Get together, men together drinking coffee and really getting into accountability questions, women doing that. Then we come together once a month for fellowship. We're doing participation. I think have fun with that calendar. I think Doug did a great job of just giving some examples. Those are all jumping off points for you guys to go and think through, okay, these spaces are important. Our identities are important. The mission is important. How do we organize ourselves to that end?
All right, two more. Stand up because I'm not going to see you. All right, Jared.
Okay, I've already thought this through for myself, but I thought I might as well ask it, for everybody else. So how do I get started?
Love it.
We touched on this with, tell me your name again. All right. I think we touched on this a little bit earlier, but as far as just to reiterate some of the things on how to get started, one, you need to surface yourself. And so if you have a group of people, if you feel called to a specific shared mission, there's ways to surface yourself, whether that's through the MC Connect forums that JD pointed us to earlier. We also are coordinating our whiteboards around specific shared missions that you all have written on our whiteboards the last couple weeks. And so if there's people you feel called to as far as you want to be on mission there, or if there's neighborhoods that you want to be, that you feel called to, write your name up on those whiteboards with the specific places and the specific people that we have specified on the whiteboard. As far as beyond that, as you're getting a core team together, as there's a core team that seems to be surfacing around a particular shared mission, or maybe there's already a core team that you all are connecting with. We also want to know that. And what we want to do is assign a coach to that particular core team or to that particular mission. And that in that we're going to meet, that coach is going to either approve you guys or not approve you guys to move through that incubation phase that JD talked about earlier. That incubation phase is where the meat of cultural exegesis plays out, really thinking through the investigative process that Doug referred to earlier. And so if you have a group of people that you want to be on mission with, let us know through the ways that we've communicated. begin praying with those people, begin thinking about the culture that you're called to, and what are the bridges and barriers to the gospel. And then we'll enter into that with you.
And in the words of Jesus, go. Start. Get after it. Have fun. Invite us into the process.
All right, last question. All right, Coop.
So you've been gathering information for the past couple of weeks of what the church as a whole is kind of feeling, what they want to do. When can we expect to see that information out? So if we're not confident of like what we personally don't have a core, but we want to see what other people in the church are involved in and what we can network with, when can we anticipate start seeing some of this information coming out?
Tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, the whiteboards go from just random brainstorming to here's what has been identified. If you want to jump into these, you can jump into those. And at the same time, then as probably the next 3 to 4 weeks emerge, that will take on more form, more shape. It'll kind of concrete, not just be loose and fluid. Does that make sense? So, or like, I mean, Tyler, if you're going, hey, this is where I am, this is where my family is, we want to make disciples, like send a message to Jen Barada or to any of us and say, you got anybody else out there? And we'll happily get to work on that.
I want to reiterate, in light of some of the questions that have been answered, these three guys, as well as Jen Barada, who's our connection intern, Jen's in the back right there, almost their entire job this fall is just to help us form and coach these missional communities. And so this day isn't like, hey, y'all go do this, have a good time, let us know if you have a problem, all right? This is, we're doing this together. We're investing a lot of staff resources and time to help get you into missional communities, to help those missional communities get launched in a healthy way, to help process through all the questions that come up when you're developing a shared mission. And so we're committing to this with you. And these guys and gals that work on our staff team are primarily giving themselves to this fall. And so just know this isn't where it ends. This is where it starts, right? And as you guys work this out and as you continue to pray through how God's calling, there's going to be a lot of help and a lot of coaching and a lot of question answering and all of that stuff that goes on as we go forward. And so this is not the end but the beginning. All right? Thanks, you guys.